Hi, kitty cats. My own personal pain over the last couple of months almost buried me. You didn't hear much about this because I was trained not to tell people when I hurt. And I know I'm not alone. Many of us retreat when we feel hurt. Obviously, politics and the media, they play on this dynamic. They want us to lose a particular quality because it keeps us hooked. And that quality has a Greek word, Sophrosyne. It means enough self awareness to know where you stand. Now, lack of sophrosyne means we hurt each other, which means we end up feeling hurt ourselves. And it's a cycle we can't see because we're trapped inside it. Breaking that cycle takes purpose and will. So, today let's talk about why we hurt each other and why hiding is exactly what they want us to do. Before I get started, let me do my own introduction. I want to say hi to Angela and to Forrest. Hello. I am Dr. Amethysta Herrick. I am both a scientist and a content creator. I discuss identity and gender through the lens of the scientific method. If you want to find out more information about me and the work that I do, you can go to my website right down there. That is purplepawclan.com. You will find a page about me, all the social media networks I'm on. You will find a page for the blog and all of the articles that I write. You will find a page for the podcast that I record. You will find a page you can join our Discord server. And finally, you can look at the hypnotherapy work that I do to help people work through some of these issues with identity and gender. Now, if you'd like to support my work, you can get a subscription on the website for as little as $5 a month. You can sign up for the free newsletter that publishes about every 2 weeks. I was going to do it tomorrow. You can also follow me on all the social medias, and if you like and share what I do, that is beautiful support, and I love you for it. Finally, I do also publish other people's work on my website, so if you'd like to contribute original work in identity or gender, please email me using the contact page on the website there, which, for the last time, purplepawclan.com. I see Thistle is here too. Hello, Thistle. Thistle says she is unable to hurt people. Just stand by. Let's let's see what happens here. Why am I doing this live stream? I want to talk about the pain that you didn't hear about. I want to frame this particular discussion in my experience because I find one of the best ways to make a point ultimately is to tell an actual story. And my story over about the past maybe 6 weeks or so makes this point really well. So just to tick over a few of the things that happened recently, I'm not going to give you an exhaustive list of everything that's hurt. I'm assuming you've noticed politics have gotten much worse recently. I didn't think it was possible. But politics have gotten even worse as we go toward midterm elections. I think as we watch the conservatives squirm under the scrutiny of what's going on, because we've got the Epstein files, we've got a war in Iran, we've got, prices going up, gas is super duper expensive now. And as we watch them squirm under scrutiny, their attacks have gotten more and more frequent, more and more visceral. You can see that these are people who really want to hurt now. So there's been politics. Personally, that's also been difficult for me. I mentioned my mother now has memory issues. She went into assisted living. This whole thing has caused conflict within my immediate family. I think I also told you I went to Los Angeles last week and had junk collectors literally clear out my mother's house, which forced me really to confront, I don't want to say my mortality, but certainly my whole life. My past, my present, my future. And with all the war, with all the hate that's flowing today, the future doesn't feel very positive. And I sometimes get to a point where I start to wonder whether there's even a future at all. So for the past month or two, somewhere 4 weeks, 6 weeks or so, I've been in a lot of pain. And I know I spoke at least a little bit about some of this. And I got to figure that some of the cracks are starting to show, that it's becoming more obvious because I'm cutting streams short. I'm not doing the transgender joy videos regularly. I think I've missed 2 in like 6 weeks. I'm canceling appointments with people. I'm barely communicating on the Discord server. And maybe you just thought, well, Amy's really busy. Maybe you thought that, in part because I try my best to cultivate that impression. I'm trying to make it look like there's so much to do. I just don't have time to do it all. The point is that I wanted not to be obvious. I was trained, largely by my parents, to hide my pain. And that means to hide it from you as well. To hide it from people who could possibly support me, show me I mean something, whatever. So I don't have support, and I enable that lack of support. Which means, of course, I take longer to recover, and all of that. Maybe this sounds familiar, because I know it's not just isolated to me. It's not isolated to the queer community. I think this is a common feeling in every marginalized community right now. So we're trained to hurt each other, and we're trained to hide it when we get hurt. So today, what I want to talk about, first of all, why we learn to hate each other, why we learn to hurt each other. And then we can talk about why we hide when we feel hurt and how we learned that behavior. And then finally, let's talk about this Greek word, Sophrosyne, which is exactly what can counteract social media today. I see some condolences. Let's start with why we're hurting each other. Why do people take so much joy in being a dick online? Like, what's all that about? Let me show a couple of these first. So Charlotte says, sorry to hear of her passing. My mother actually, she just has memory issues. She's now in assisted living, so she's not gone. Frankly, she doesn't know who I am, and that includes my dead name, which is an interesting place to be. It does mean I don't have to worry about that. So, in some ways, it's a good thing for me. I haven't spoken to her in almost 3 years. So, to a certain extent, not having to care about that, maybe it's okay. So thank you. And Forrest, thank you for for saying you're sorry. Right? Trauma, jazz hands, claws. Thank you, Margie, for the hugs. Definitely. Here we go. Let me see. So, why do we want to hurt each other? What happens here? The real point here is that the media trains us ultimately to hurt each other. I'm going to refer first of all to the word Sophrosyne. I don't want to do a deep dive yet. We're going to get there. But I read an article recently about the word. It was actually not one I knew before. The author puts it into an interesting perspective. She says, first of all, it's like living your best life. And if you're gender diverse, you're probably going, oh, I've heard that before, right? The best life, according to the author, is one where you're aware of who you are, how you contribute, which sounds amazing, right? I mean, you go, well, this is, first of all, totally on track with what Amy talks about, so at least it makes sense. Why did I read it? The author actually talks mostly about how social media prevents us from doing our own research. And while I don't disagree there, because I do agree, while I don't disagree, I think it's a lot more than that. It's not that we don't just do. Wait, let me try this again. It's not that we just don't do our own research. There are people, many of us, some of us maybe here, who purposely revel in our ignorance. Maybe not everybody here, but some of us who revel in purposely not knowing, not understanding. I mean, you can see this, first of all, in the, I've got to say, so-called gender debate, right? You have people who have a distinct lack of knowledge about biology. You see politicians redefining words, actually redefining the observations that we've made in biology. And of course, you've got staunch religious condemnations based on mythology, based on a book that they go, well, I know this book is right because it says right here in the book that's right, this book is right. So what we've done is we make a bubble of our own ignorance. And there's no, like you've heard of this before, confirmation bias, right? We tend to seek out content, we tend to seek out confirmation of all the things that we believe. There's a sort of an adjacent one called my side bias, which is not exactly confirmation bias. You confirm, in this case, what you do is you go, well, my side said it, must be true. If you're a MAGA supporter, you go, well, Trump says it, must be true. Doesn't mean it has to be true. It means that your side said it. So this is it. This is part of it is this bubble of our own ignorance. But it's also because we have so many conflicting opinions. And some of that, there's no doubt, like science is complicated, right? There are some things that make sense in some places, some things that don't make sense in other places. We have conflicting opinions about nutrition, about medicine. One person responds to a medication, one person doesn't. So nutrition, medicine, philosophy, obviously, politics, society. Ultimately, we get overwhelmed and we lose our sense of stability. To counteract that, we make this bubble of ignorance. We do this because ultimately we end up in a place where we don't trust anyone. Or if we do trust anything, it's blind trust. Like it is truly, if you hear people say you got to have faith, not just George Michael, because that was slightly different. Although I do definitely appreciate, George Michael coming into the discussion when we're really talking about political or religious faith. So we don't trust anyone, and if we do, it's blind, it's faith. The lack of trust leads to two very significant opinions. Two very significant outcomes in our lives. First of all, we don't trust others who hold different opinions. This is the my side bias. We think that people, if they're going to say something to us, they must have an angle, right? We go, all right, where's this person? What's this person trying to mooch off of me? How is this person trying to cheat me? We wonder where those people are going to end up hurting us. And so we'll keep other people, other opinions at arm's length at best. And this comes with a pretty obvious, like this can be described pretty obviously. Like if you don't study something too deeply, you don't have to question the beliefs that come from what you haven't studied. So instead, what you can do is present a wall and just tell everybody else, piss off. That's the way that works. So we strike out at anything, anyone, right? This is the wall. I'm telling people to piss off. We're going to strike out. If you don't understand it, if you don't understand an argument coming in, must be wrong. So we're trained. Social media trains us to not just social media, politics, in general, mass media, social media, they train us ultimately to bite anyone who's going to hold out a hand. Social media plays into this, but most media, every algorithm, every engineered post that says, thank you for your attention to this matter, what they're trying to do is make us doubt each other. Because doubt will fuel this fire. Doubt will keep us continuing to hurt each other so that we don't have to think about what's going on today. So that's one outcome. That's one significant outcome. The other one is that we don't trust ourselves. Because we know there might be other information out there. It might be a whole lot of information. It might be information we don't want to read. So we actually don't trust ourselves. We've been told conflicting stories, and we're told that both of these stories could be true at once. So we don't know how to choose. Ultimately, we don't know how to choose that. The longer term effect, so the longer term of not trusting in yourself, the longer this lasts, the less you know if you really hurt. Who knows? Do those stories hurt you? You don't trust yourself. Do you really hurt? The longer that lack of trust in yourself goes on, the less you believe that your hurt needs to be addressed. You're gaslighting yourself. It is gaslighting, absolutely. But the origin is in part too much information, not too little. And some of it is too many people who claim they're experts. Which brings us to the next point, and I'll get to comments in a second here. It brings us to the next point. When we cannot trust whether we know if we truly feel pain, we're not going to reach out to others for support. But how does that happen? And how does that translate into how we are in society? Oh no. Okay, so here I'll get some comments. Charlotte, I'm sorry. So here's a client that she had who helped her through some things around 2018 around being transgender, just passed away. Even if you knew it was coming, as Charlotte said, yeah, it was shocking. And I'm sorry, Charlotte. That's a bummer. You haven't had to deal with my father died in 2019. No, 2009, sorry. And it really didn't affect me, so I haven't had somebody who was close to me pass away yet. I wish I could empathize, and it's difficult for me. So I hope you're okay, Charlotte. So Angela says she's the same. She doesn't show people that she's not feeling well. Yeah. So Angela says she learned when she was young never to be unhappy to anyone but Andy. And so now she keeps her feelings to herself. So fascinating. Yes, we do learn that. Our parents, they're like, I'm going to talk about this, but like parents are really good at going, don't be a wimp, other people wouldn't have problems with this, whatever. We get taught you should not trust yourself. You should trust other people's opinion of you. It's one of the worst things I think you can do to a child. I appreciate Margie throwing out an XTC. I wondered if we were going to get a good XTC, like a quote specifically from Dear God, but if there's something I don't believe in, it's you, dear God. A great line. Really a good line. So here we go. Yeah, look at this. Forrest says it's almost as if there's an expectation for us to perform warmth for others at the cost of self or reciprocal support. That's it entirely. If you can't trust that you hurt, and yet there's supposed to be some support you give, whatever, yeah, it becomes performative. It's absolutely performative. I don't know how better to put it. I'll leave it at that right now. I love this. Okay, so Angela says she always analyzes any information that she reads or sees and makes her own decisions. See, that's good. We're going to get to that. That's one of the points. But yeah, it's really difficult. Like, it takes time for you to understand things, and we want to go and do other things. We're going to get there. Let me hold on that one. And yes, here we go. Margie says, as we're all aware, Margie's seen every dang facet of this diamond of ignorance and hatred from her nominal allies. I think it's true. This isn't just something. It's marginalized people, and as I've said before, marginalization comes from stigma, which isn't resident in the person. It's resident in the people who stigmatize others. Some people are supposed to be allies. It doesn't have to, this isn't just white versus black. It's not conservative versus liberal. This is people who want to hurt others. So thank you, Margie, not for your experience. Thank you for bringing that point up. I will expand on that later on too. I'm going to move on. I'm going to move on and talk about isolation, especially when isolation becomes a form of self-defense. So as I'm, sitting around feeling bad, I don't want to laugh at that, but as I'm sitting around feeling bad, I came across an article. Just came across my feed somewhere, and I will tell you, I will put If anybody wants to see this, I'll put a link to the article in the Discord server. What the link does is talk about two different types of loners. This is a different article than the Sophrosyne one. We're going to get to that one. That's next. But this article talks about how there are two types of loners. And you know loners, right? You meet a group of people. There's one in like every, I hate to sound like this, there's one in every crowd. But you meet a group of people and there's one person that you're like, how you doing? And they go, good. And you go, oh, so what do you do? And, work, things like that. Or worse, they go, why do you need to know what I do? And then, stop talking, okay? If you haven't seen Goodfellas, I'm just going to tell you, if somebody says that, stop talking. Anyway, these people who are very guarded with their personalities. They're guarded with their lives. So this article distinguishes from that kind of person, one type of loner. This person isolates themselves because they want to. And you know them. They don't want to be your friend. They might become an acquaintance. I like to think that's more or less how I am. But these are people who isolate because they don't like people, or at least they don't like some people. And they go, I'm not going to be around them. And I don't say that there is anything wrong with these people because that's just who they are. They don't want to be around people. Hey, that's cool. Like, that's okay. But then the article defines another kind of loner. This is the kind of loner who isolates themselves because they believe they deserve it. And this is what I've did my whole life. I grew up with parents, some of whom, like how many parents did I have? But I grew up with parents who would hit me if I disagreed with them. Parents for whom my pain was not a subject they were willing to discuss because they were more important. And so I learned really early on, by 4, I'm sure, I learned really early on that expressing my pain would lead to more pain. And you gotta imagine when you're queer, particularly gender diverse, not a good combination. So I think this is a pretty common experience, especially for the queer community. If nothing else, just, all of the people, all of the talks I've had with all of you over the past few years. Thistle, I think, oh, here we go, actually. Let me finish a point, Thistle, and then I'm going to bring that up. But this was something that I learned in childhood, okay, that don't express pain because it leads to more pain. But I don't think that that's the only way that we learn to hide pain. I don't think it's just people who had parents like mine. Western stories. I think I'll use the word Western mythology because I think that's the right term for it. Western mythology builds this whole idea up, right? We've got stories as the lone inventor against the world. I'm going to go out and I'm going to prove everybody is wrong. There's that one kid who's special. That kid knows they're right when the world says they're wrong. We get fed this mythology in movies and books every single day. Every single day. But aside from that, we are trained not to trust ourselves. Aside from being as a child, I learned to trust that I could that I could be feeling pain, that I literally could be in pain. As a child, this is what I learned. And by the way, parents, if you're curious, this is what telling your kid to buck up does. If you just go, oh, don't be a wimp, buck up. This is, what being an adult is. They don't learn to be stronger. They learn to ignore pain. And they learn to ignore you, by the way. That's another quick point there. But this is exactly what the stories, the Western mythology, does too. If we don't feel good, that's on us. Okay, it's not on the story. We're not living that story strongly enough. If you don't feel like you're loved by God, Here's a Christian thing for you. If you don't feel you're loved by God, it's because maybe your faith isn't strong enough. Here's an oligarchy example. If you're not rich yet, you must not be working hard enough. Time to work harder. Here's a white Christian patriarchy. We'll stick it all together. If you're marginalized, it's because you're not white enough, you're not male enough, you don't conform to social norms, and you're just plain fucking weird. Maybe you should address that fucking weird bit. The story is both the poison and the antidote. So I can bring this up. So, because Thistle actually brings something up. Thistle says, don't forget the traumatized sort that are too afraid to socialize. I think this is part of it. You get parents who do that. You get mythology that does this. You get media that does this. All the stories we hear, all the people on social media who are going to call you weird. Yes, of course this happens. I mean, Thistle even says she wants friends, but she's too scared to get them. I don't think this is uncommon. I mean, even if you look at I forget what we call them. Incel is the crummy term, right? Involuntarily celibate. They're afraid to go out to find any kind of affection. They were trained to think that finding affection is in some way a weakness. And so the mask that they put on so that people go, oh, what a big man. I like to sleep with big men. And it doesn't work. Who would have thought? But there you go. Too scared. So when we are scared, we isolate ourselves, which, as I've mentioned, is what I've been doing for the past month or so. And at least in my case, it's not because I don't have a support system, because I do. Some of you may be going, why didn't you reach out to me? It's not because I don't have you. It's not because I don't think that my support system might even be able to help. It's not that I don't think that. It's because I don't trust people enough to be able to come into my life and help me. And ultimately, I don't trust myself to know that I hurt so badly that I deserve help. I don't know. Does any of this sound familiar? I mean, I got to imagine there's at least one of you out there going, yeah, that's it exactly. So, if Western mythology is being poised at as both a poison and the antidote, is there any antidote for our lack of trust in ourselves? Is there any antidote for lack of trust, not just in ourselves? Is there any antidote for lack of trust in the society around us, in the science that we see coming out of everything? And then finally, the trust in ourselves? Yeah. Yes. Now we can look at a Greek word that does capture what it takes. Now we can talk about the word Sophrosyne, which is just a beautiful. I looked at it and it went Sophrosyne. 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 All right, let me check comments a little bit. So Angela says she knows when she's in pain and she can deal with it when it's a suitable time to deal with it. I'm going to tell you, transition helped me figure that out. I think I've done a huge amount of growth in being able to go, oh, I should probably isolate. I should probably heal. I should probably look at the situation and go, what is it that's hurting me? Transition helped me get there. It's the ability to feel some emotions, but even the ability to feel some emotions, and even when somebody goes, oh, you're completely deserving, it's hard to believe. There are, much lower level beliefs that override whatever else I want to believe. So I definitely can tell better when I'm in pain, but I don't always act on it. And I think that's really more my point. I'm not sure if this is good or bad. You can't spell marginalized without Margie, more or less. I mean, good point. Oh, what do we have here? Okay, here we go. So Margie says, this is both Margie, by the way, both Margie and Thistle are moderators, at least on one of these one of the streaming platforms. Margie says it says something about this show that both of the moderators are terrified of leaving their own homes. Kind of does, right? I mean, I don't think I'm exactly drawing people to me who are cream puffs, unworthy, whatever other word might be added. What I do is talk about this truthfully, because I think there are a lot of people out there who are like, well, do we have to worry about them? Aren't they the minority, especially when you're marginalized, right? People go, oh, they're the minority anyway. If they wanted to be loved, they'd be in the majority. Like there's democracy and, social norms or something. Sorry, untrue. But it does say something. I think so. I'm going to think a little bit on what else it might mean, but Angela brings up an interesting point. I mentioned my parents, and Angela did have good parents, right? She says she had great parents, but she learned when she was young that emotions would destroy her. So she destroyed them first. This is exactly what all of us face. It doesn't have to mean that you're queer. In fact, I mean, there are white men right now who are going, I'm feeling pain. What should I be able to do? Good point. White Christian patriarchy fails everyone. And I'm not saying that's what Angela is, but yeah, this is, we learn that emotions will destroy us, so we have to destroy them first. Hello, Genevieve. Good to see you. Margie says, does that sound familiar? It took her a minute to respond because both of her hands were up. Yeah. There we go. Believe in aliens who believe in aliens. Somewhere out there, someone believes in us. It's going to be the gray guys, which means very much that I don't think that, the gray men, that they're going to be walking with Trump, if you get where I'm going with this, okay? Not going to happen. Hello, Dudecombe. Good to see you back. So, so Forrest says, what if they wanted to be an unworthy cream puff? I'm okay if you're a cream puff, okay? It was an interesting, when I was in, sorry, I'll finish a sentence. When I lived in Los Angeles, at some point there was a woman who wanted to date me. Let's leave it at that. Date. Yeah, it's a strong word. Anyway, and she says, oh, do you want to go for a hike? And I was like, okay. Now, at this point, I was, probably running 20 miles a week or so. Sorry, about 30 kilometers a week. I forget, not everybody uses imperial freedom units. So anyway, I'm running a decent amount. Okay, so we go for this walk, and I'm wearing combat boots because that's just what I wore at the time. And we climb to the top of this hill, and we get there, and I'm not even like breathing hard. It was not a terrible hike. I mean, I don't do a lot of hiking, but I'm just like, yeah, we're hiking. We get to the top of the thing, and she goes, wow, yeah, look at that view. And then she goes, God, I thought you wouldn't be able to do this. I thought you were a cream puff. And looks away, and I go, because I'm like, part of me wants to go, well, yeah. But then the other part of me goes, well, wait a minute. Hang on. What are you trying to say about me? So it was a moment where I was like, I'm not sure where to go with this other than to go, huh. So cream puffs are fine. Be a cream puff. Unworthy? No, you don't get to want to be that. I don't think you get to want to be that. And I'm going to get there, I swear. Well, I'm already 30 minutes in. I should probably go. Here are people who aren't worthy enough even to be an unworthy cream puff, right? There you go. Here we go. So let me see. Charlotte says autism allowed her not to see most emotions, let alone comprehend them. You may mask them in ways, yet they're not really observable in any true sense. I'm going with you. Yeah, I'm with you on that. There's a lot of ways we can mask that. I think this is one of them. Isolation is just one of them. Let me hop onto this Greek word, okay? Sophrosyne. It's a complicated word. Ultimately, Sophrosyne means self-awareness, trust, and integration, and so that's where we're going to go next. Um, I read another article. Again, this just comes across my feed. I don't know why this happens. Um, and again, I can put this link in the Discord server too if somebody wants to see it. This author talks about the connection. So this was fascinating. First of all, she mentions a little bit about herself. She talks about the connection between virtue and happiness. Just ponder that for a moment. It's kind of a strange topic to discuss today. Virtue is chosen, right? Either you, at least in the Greek concept of virtue, and for what it's worth, really in my own concept of virtue, if you are just something already, you're just that something. When you choose virtue, whether you act in a virtuous way or don't, that's a strange topic because of how our society is structured. And I'm going to go back to that Western mythology, right? The highest ideal for you right now is to be born white and to be assigned male at birth. Believe it or not, folks, you don't choose these. Well, I mean, there are going to be spiritual people who say, well, you chose the situation because of your karma, whatever. I'm not going to get into that. You don't choose today if you're going to be born white, if you're going to be assigned male at birth. Another ideal is to be wholly devoted to the Christian faith. And I'll admit, you kind of choose to believe that. You kind of do. To a certain extent, it gets browbeaten into you, so you might believe it, but you definitely don't have any say in what constitutes virtue here. How you act, how you're supposed to be, what you're supposed to believe, that's up to church leaders. So it's interesting. This person is talking about the connection between virtue and happiness, but virtue has really taken a back seat, specifically in Western mythology, because either you're born, where we just went here, either you're born bioessentially perfect, or you blindly follow someone else's idea of perfect. And in both, again, as I'm saying, the poison is also pitched as the antidote. You don't get out of these cycles because you can't. So the author defines a word. The words existed for a long time. Plato, Aristotle talked about this. Cicero. The author defines this word, which is sophrosyne, as I said, Sophrosyne. Since I've talked a little bit about Cicero recently, and I don't, maybe you saw that that live stream where I talked about memory. In part, that's where my understanding of Cicero comes from. And Cicero defines Sophrosyne specifically as a constellation, so a confluence. What's the word I'm looking for? Complex. In psychology, it would be like a complex of four virtues, because complex meaning, they play off of each other and they can reinforce each other, or one can change another. So Cicero just defined it as like this complex of four virtues. And actually, if you look at his work on memory, you're going to see that actually memory is one of these. Memory fits into some of these virtues, the virtues that he some of what he calls the only virtues you need. So he defines it as four. First is temperance. Temperance is balance, both within and without, how you feel about yourself and how you express it. The second is moderation. Moderation, again, it's balance. What goes in, what comes out. The third one is modesty. So it's balance again now on how much we're going to pump ourselves up. It's a balance on how honest we're going to be with our social environment. And then the fourth one is frugality. It seemed a little weird one to throw in there, but that's balance in what we want versus what we need. If you're not getting this, the big point, and you're not going to see this, by the way, in the Sophrosyne article, this is stuff that I'm saying. The big point here in Sophrosyne is balance. But ultimately, how do you find this balance? Temperance means understanding yourself, what you want, what you know inside versus what you choose to express on the outside. Moderation means understanding your personal relationship with physical environment, how much you're going to eat or drink or whatever. Modesty means understanding your personal relationship in the social environment. And frugality, when it comes down to it, I know maybe you're going, well, it's saving money. Frugality means understanding your greater relationship and your impact on the physical environment and the social environment. Do you really need another AI data center? Frugality would say no, if the impact on the physical environment and social environment, for that matter, would be too much. So, temperance, moderation, modesty, frugality. One word captures this pretty well. And if you're going to, if I'm going to talk about like more recent, like pop psychology, they call it self awareness. Because now I can rephrase these. It's being aware of who you are, being aware of what you do, being aware of what you say, and being aware of whom you affect when you do these things. So I want to expand on Cicero. These are great, but I want to expand on Cicero in this author, as I said, because I want to define Sophrosyne as situational awareness. I don't know if you've seen this anywhere. It's composed academically as perception, so it's being able to perceive what's going on around you. Comprehension, how does what's going on around me affect me and others in this situation? And then projection, what would my actions and possibly others' actions do to change the current situation? And that's a loop that just runs like a loop does. I think we know what a loop is. I can stop here. Now, how much does this sound like what you see today? I think not at all. I mean, this is holistic thinking. You might, like, maybe you'd call it systems theory, systems design, maybe a better word for that. The point is that each of us, we always have to be aware of many things at once. And more specifically, we have to be honest enough to assess many things at once. And it's really the honesty that matters here. Let me take a drink. Why am I putting it down? It's the honesty that matters here, because being honest with ourselves is one major step in trusting ourselves. And of course, when people are honest to us, pretty naturally we trust them more. And that is 100% what we lack today, specifically in the media we consume. So maybe you're going, wow, this is all really great philosophically. You're going to get right on it. Yeah, I've got it. I'm right on it. So let's talk a little bit about some practical steps to develop Sophrosyne, especially developing Sophrosyne situational awareness when we think about having to be part of today's society. And I'm not going to say I'm going to solve Thistle's issues, Margie's issues, but hey, this is what I got. So let me check comments. The little gray men with Trump are the logical inverse of the rainbow pride freaks we are, or at least piously claim to be. Aren't they supposed to be? But they're also very other. I don't know. It's weird that there were pictures, but all right, so Dudico says they're also autistic, and due to it, they used to be really emotional. Oh, really? I would think the opposite, but with time, they stopped feeling them because otherwise they would be alone forever. Oh, that is rough. Because you were too emotional, you felt you needed to isolate. Interesting. I'm not going to say you're wrong. I don't want to say you're wrong anyway. I do think I understand that. And here we go. Here's goes on. It's funny. Yesterday, or maybe it was today, they saw a play with their friend, and had a vibe that it connected to the theme of vanitas. There we go. What we're talking about right now also reminds me of it. Yeah, fun. Vanitas, not one of the one of the virtues. Latin, I suppose that translates to, would be a root for vanity, but see, here we go. See, Thistle says she believes in Jesus not because she's religious or Christian, but she believes in and follows Jesus as the anarchist table flipping punk that he was. Oh, I hope that offends somebody out there. Just saying. I agree with Margie. We could use an army of table flipping Jesuses. Jesus? I don't know. How do you say that? Yes, here you go. Temperance, modesty, moderation, and frugality. Did you, are you pulling this out of Cicero, like out of your memory? Because, damn. Look at that. Gonna agree with this. So Angela says the only way you survive as a transgender woman is by not following the herd, but following your own path. Ooh, so true. How hard that is, right? That's difficult. That's difficult advice. Oh, there you go. There you go. Dachi Archetype says they ninjured me this time. Totally. Spaghetti Guy says moderation is their favorite. They're just going by their understanding. Not sure how Cicero would have meant it. Yeah, I mean, although the Latin words mean something it's an interesting point, because when you read something from like 2000 years ago, almost certainly there's going to be a word that you go, oh yeah, I know what modesty means, but that's not really what they meant. And there are whole books like devoted to this. Aristotle was huge with moderation. Aristotle was like, be moderate in everything, especially moderation, as Margie says. So fascinating bits. Yes. So to go back to the idea of that the poison and the antidote, and I think this is where this comment comes from. It says it's kind of like the paradox of tolerance. The paradox of tolerance, in case you're unaware, this is if you make a space and you go, we are tolerant of everything, that means you have to be tolerant of everything. And the paradox says that as you start to tolerate everything, that means you have to tolerate intolerance. And if you tolerate intolerance, then ultimately it devolves into no tolerance at all. Instead, it's tribal warfare of people going, hey, fuck you, no, fuck you. So it's an interesting paradox. So Spaghetti says, due to their anxiety, they're both very good and very bad at perception. I have the feeling you're similar to me, where I'll see somebody react to something and I go, oh, because I noticed this very small thing, right? It could just be that they were I saw that they were thinking to themselves, what am I going to eat for dinner tonight? Oh shoot, I don't have any leftovers. But I see, hey, I think you're really cool, and they go, and then I go, ooh, it's all about me. They hate me. This is why my mother never loved me. It's why she doesn't remember me right now. This is why nobody calls me when I'm not feeling well, even though I don't tell them I'm not feeling well. This is why I will never be loved, and I'm never going to get married, even though I have been married for almost 20 years. And this is why I just need to go down somewhere and eat some worms. And I think I'm going to go eat some worms. I'm going to go lie down in bed. Maybe that sounds familiar. But yeah, there you go. Oh my gosh, look, Minnie's here. Hi, Minnie. This is my friend. I was talking to her earlier this morning. Hi. Oh my gosh. All right. I'm going to, here we go. Thank you. So Anita, thank you for bringing this. Cause I mentioned, um, uh, vanitas is different from what we would consider today. So Anita's saying, I guess vanity in this context refers to the everything being finite and therefore futile. Take that where you want to, will you? Oh, this is fascinating. Look, Anita then brings up to say, we had to relearn that the Epicureans were into moderation, and Epicurus was all about, like, you can read Epicurus and go, oh, that's hedonism, but it's taking pleasure in the here and now, which is different from hedonism. So, oh my gosh, how did I get to 50 minutes in? I don't know how I do this. Um, I want to let me move on just a little bit here. How do we develop situational awareness? When First of all, if you've ever done any, like if that word means something to you, typically we hear this or that phrase when you think about situational awareness. Typically, you hear this referring to like law enforcement, military personnel, like emergency personnel. These are all great examples because these are jobs that require keeping track of a whole lot of variables at once in order to keep everyone safe, to keep the people in the situation safe. We don't usually think about this as playing a huge part in our personal lives, but it does. Because if we aren't aware of what's going on around us, guess what? We're going to get hurt. That's why emergency personnel are keeping track of that for us. This is exactly, and even if we're not talking an emergency uh, situation, this is exactly how you end up going on social media and then just feeling stung if you're not aware of what's going on around you, because you might go to the wrong places, go to some places. If we aren't aware of the differences between politics and science, between an actual observation and somebody's opinion of the observation, we hurt others. So we don't know the difference. And this is exactly how those people on social media sting you. How do you end up being stung? Because you have somebody who's not aware of the differences between politics and science. And if we're not aware, ultimately, once we've been stung, if we're not aware of how being stung should affect us, we build this cycle. And it's where we end up hiding when what we really need is support. So let's go through these one by one. So we'll start off with what's going on around us. You know very well. How about this? If you don't know very well, let me tell you, algorithms are designed to draw you in and keep you hooked so that you don't leave. There are exceptions. Blue Sky is one of those. There, there you get to design your own echo chamber rather than be assigned one based on what you like. You get to design your own echo chamber. But algorithms, ultimately, if you didn't know this, they exist to feed us what we want to believe. That was an important phrase. What we want to believe. I did a live stream sometime last year, who knows when, but I did a live stream about the difference between what is true and what is truth. And true is even kind of a funky word, but one is a verifiable observation. You make an observation and you go, did I observe that? You can go back and verify it. Yes or no, I didn't observe that. The other one is what we hope to pull out of verifying or denying the observation. So this means understanding ultimately what you really do believe. This is the way you get out of this. You have to understand what you really do believe. So practically, and maybe this is going to suck, this means to engage with content that bugs you. It's not going to be pleasant. It is how you learn what people can use against you. It means you understand both sides. What is the point, this content that you're watching, especially if it bugs you? What is the point that content is trying to make? And maybe more to the point, why is what you believe more effective, more based in science, more your word here? Utilitarian is a utilitarianist. Utilitarian. There we go. Whatever. You have to understand both sides. And you have to be able to explain both sides. And I know that sounds terrifying because it is. It's partly what I do because it's how you learn who you really are. Now, so that's that. So having to go with what's going on around us. So it takes, what you have to do is be able to engage with this content, even if it bugs you, and understand what it says. So we can move to the second one. This is the difference between media and data. I changed that a little bit. I said that the difference, originally I had said, when you don't understand the difference between politics and science and observations and opinions, now I'm saying media and data, because the media offers opinions. The media rarely offers research and data unless you're going to like academic journals, which you might be, which if you are, good. Like, good on you. Go and do it. Um, but the media offers opinions. I mean, even what I do, right? It comes with my opinion on top, like a thick layer of whipped cream. So your job here is to puncture through my purposes even and gain what you can from it. Why do I think these particular things? Why do I believe these? This is to build on the practical advice above. As you engage with content that might bug you, as you try to understand both sides, you have to determine if you're looking at opinions based on data or opinions based on faith. Based on faith in a politician, based on faith in a religion, based on a dogmatic philosophy, whatever. You have to determine if the content intends to further shared progress, shared, or progress for the person expressing it. And that is a huge, huge part of situational awareness. What are other people and their perspectives bringing to this situation? Could those perspectives, could their actions be valuable to the situation, or could they be detrimental? And as Angela brought up earlier on, this means doing your own research. And I know, this might mean going to a library or picking up a book. It might mean live streams. But it might mean also finding the people who want to be constructive. I think that's a decent rule of thumb. You can go on social media and find all kinds of people. But I think a lot of it boils down to two different types of people. If you find somebody who is trying to build others up, who is trying to build on knowledge, who is trying to build on compassion, if you find somebody who is trying to build people up, it's probably worth finding out more about that message. If you find somebody who can only tear others down, it's worth being suspicious about that message. Shared progress. When we look at the progress of the human species as a whole, it means building people up. It means building new concepts. It means making new concepts real. Shared progress does not mean tearing people down to laugh at them. So it's a decent rule of thumb, not always true. I have certainly done my share of picking apart things like executive orders and saying, here's where this is wrong. But the decent rule of thumb, if you have somebody who honestly, genuinely appears to be trying to build people up, trying to be constructive, it's probably worth finding more about that message, finding out more. And if you find people who can only tear others down, it's probably worth being suspicious. So I went through those two. This is how the situation affects us. Whether or not we're aware of something, whether or not somebody is purposely trying to harm us. So we're going to get to now when we get stung, overwhelmed, and hurt. But I want to grab some comments because I didn't realize I probably maybe should have made this two topics, but I didn't. I like this. So Dodgy Archetype says, yeah, the paradox of tolerance is one of those things that sounds paradoxical until you rephrase it. Yeah. Oh, here we go. Look. Sri Satya Sai Baba says, life is a bridge, cross over it, but don't build a house on it. I agree with you. I got a bunch of quotes. Total freedom is not as free as a set of rules that provide maximal freedom. It's rules that cause the boundaries, right? When Minnie says, when she hears tolerance, she thinks of milk. Sometimes she can drink it, no problem. Other times when she drinks it, her stomach gets angry. Ooh, that's a bummer. So here we go. So I'm thinking so this is in response. I believe Charlotte's comment here is in response to building a house on a bridge. Yeah, create a situation and walk away from it. I think if you're doing that, I think you're just trying to hurt somebody. This is my opinion, but don't take me on that. So here we go. Thistle brings this up, by the way. Because when I was trying to think of the word that I was thinking for, I was like, it's CPTSD. What's that C? Oh, complex. So Thistle says is someone with complex post-traumatic stress disorder. She's all about awareness, the need to watch out for danger. And I'm not saying this is good. I'm saying I think a lot of us lack that. I think we lack that awareness and go into situations that possibly we wanted to be a bit hesitant or at least suspicious or wary. Um, and then it can get dysfunctional, right? I mean, Thistle doesn't want to leave her house. It can become dysfunctional. It's good to be aware, and then sometimes awareness becomes its own pain. Um, and Angela sums this up, especially if you're gender diverse. When she first started going out as the real her, when she was in her teens, she had to be very aware of what was happening around her. Yeah, same. Just as when I was in San Diego, when I lived in San Diego, when I was an undergraduate, my hair was shorter, so it was not. Uh, when I was in graduate school, it was much longer. So, like a lot of people were like, "Oh, well, that's a woman." When it was a little less than shoulder length, which is what I had it for a while, um, I would when I would dress up. First of all, I would stuff a bra with water balloons because water balloons are heavy. Water balloons bounce. And so I tried to make it so that if things were bouncing, people would not look very closely at me. There's a hint for you, I suppose. If you're out there going, how can I be more convincing? Get something that bounces. I don't know. I'm not sure if that was my best advice. I have better advice coming up. So Margie says truthiness is a fantastic word from Stephen Colbert. Yeah. The idea, so you see this in programming languages too. So JavaScript has this concept of truthy, right? It doesn't have to be true. There could be something like a positive integer. That's truthy, right? It's probably a truth. Is this string is a case insensitive string the same as a case sensitive string? Maybe, it's truthy. I think the idea of things being the truth really depending a lot on context, I think is a phenomenal point that I think a lot of us miss, largely because we get people who come at us with a book. I'm grabbing my notebook. Come at us with a book and go, "This is the truth," and then pound you with it. This is the truth. Because they're weird. Don't do that, people. Truthiness. Let me move on. Here we go. Look, Minnie says, pick up a book. She just said that. Yeah. Well, okay, so Spaghetti's got a point. Read the book too. Just picking it up isn't, good point. Yeah, you don't absorb knowledge by putting it under the pillow. It's a great point. All right, I'm going to go back to this. When we feel stung, when we feel overwhelmed, when we feel hurt, this is where I'm going to go all, here's my motherly advice for you. When you feel overwhelmed and hurt and stung, just like I've been, first of all, you have to know that this is going to happen. Even for oligarchs, the world will never be perfect. Even for Trump, we're seeing that happen. Go team. The world will never be perfect for any one of us. I don't care who you are, you're going to experience ups and then downs, and happiness and sadness. And this is reinforced daily through the stories we hear, the mythology, specifically of Western society. So the bigger picture here is not that life has ups or downs, despite what mythology might tell you. The bigger picture here is that those ups and downs don't occur because you're a bad person. There's no doubt you might have made some bad decisions. There's no doubt there are situations that are bad for some people. There are certainly situations, people who are going to want to make your situation worse. This definitely you see on social media. But at base, you, personally, are not objectively bad. You simply are. And ultimately, you get to choose what you're going to do with this existence. So when you know that this will happen, that there's ups, there's downs, and these cycles of up and down don't happen because you are by nature bad, then the second point is you can't blame yourself when the bad things come. You're going to go, well, what if you made bad decisions? Yes, I did say that. I mean, there's a whole meme, right, of Sammy Davis Jr. and Dean Martin, I think it was. Oh, how do you gain experience? Well, you make bad decisions. Yes, maybe you made bad decisions, and you might even want to mourn like that bad decision. Oh, I wish I hadn't made that bad decision. Certainly, you want to figure out like how not to make that decision or series of decisions again. But bad decisions have been made. They're in the past. The situation now just needs different input. So don't blame yourself at that point. There are definitely going to be times when you cannot affect the situation. This is, I think what I started out with. We're looking at this in politics. We're looking at this in war across the globe. We're looking at this in relationships in the world. We're looking at this in oligarchy, white Christian patriarchy. It's easy to think that the world itself is bad. And you're in this, personally, because you are bad. That hurts. Candidly, it's what I've been feeling for weeks, maybe months. This has weighed on me quite a bit, certainly in 2026. Here is the most practical advice that I can give. Don't think that you have to solve all the problems. Don't think that you have to solve all the problems. That doesn't mean just your problems. I mean, don't think you have to solve everyone else's problems. I'm really good at doing both. That I go, well, I have to solve everybody else's problem, and then I need to solve my problem completely right now. Solving problems takes time. What you can do is solve one small problem, and then you can see what remains. I have felt all of this inside like a hollow inside me. I've felt all of this like a hollow inside me, and I still have some hollow left for what it's worth. I'm not finished. What you do is you try something. I would almost say try anything. If you have information to make a better decision, use that. Don't just try anything, but try something. It might work, it might not, but the point is to have an experience that will contradict what you feel. Because we don't feel better by telling ourselves we feel better. We feel better from experiences. And maybe you're not going to feel that hollow inside you, not yet. But if you experience one good thing, the hollow fills a little. Because you go, oh, look, there are good things to experience. As you experience self-care more and more, that hollow fills even more. You go, look, I can care for myself. These are good experiences. That means good experiences exist. And all of this ends up coming down to one point, which is that it takes feeling the hollow being filled in order for that hollow to fill. You may be going, you got to be kidding me. Really? The poison and the antidote again? No. In this case, the poison was telling yourself you don't have to feel it. And I'm saying you do. You have to feel that. You have to feel the contradiction in order for that hollow to fill. So wrap this up a little bit. Like Olivia Rodrigo says, right? The great American philosopher, Olivia Rodrigo, it's brutal out here. And I'm not saying that after all this live stream, this means I'm going to be reaching out to any of you any better than I have. I'm still struggling with this. Maybe it'll mean that you're going to reach out to me. Maybe it'll mean you'll reach out to each other. Maybe it'll mean that you'll build some compassion. Compassion for others, compassion for yourself. But I will say, I'll conclude with this one statement. Like Olivia Rodrigo says, right? It's brutal out here, but it doesn't have to be brutal alone. Okay. That was all that I had to say today. Let me go back to a couple of um, comments here. um, so this is interesting because I just started talking about it. Spaghetti says being able to engage with it is one thing. Then there's explaining to others that engagement isn't the same as agreeing with it. Agreed. And I know that you said this before I even talked about this. True. And I guess it's where I'm going. You say explaining it to others and their agreement. And what I would want to point out here is that you don't have to agree with someone in order to allow them to exist. And you're not saying this, Spaghetti. I know that. I'm trying to pitch this as, we have people who go, you shouldn't exist. You're horrible. Saying this about me. Transition gender, don't you know? I mean, as I read an article about a guy who literally used Noah's fucking Ark, Noah's Ark, as an explanation that gender doesn't exist. He goes, well, you can just see Noah only got two of each, right? One male, one female. Therefore, ergo, this is a guy running for office, which scary. You don't have to agree with somebody in order for you to let them live. This guy wants to go, you know what? I don't agree with you, and therefore you're not allowed to live. Angela brings up an excellent point here. She knows, I think she's using this generally, she knows what you believe is based on data. It is also slanted due to your past life experiences. Totally agree. I mean, I like using the idea, right, of the seed, the piece of sand, the grain of sand that gets into an oyster, right? And we're all oysters here. If you didn't realize, we're all oysters here. And our experiences accrete around this bit of sand. That bit of sand is who we start off as, and it turns into this pearl. And I like this analogy for two reasons. First of all, it allows me to use the word accretion, which is a very lovely word. Accretion. Say it now. Say it as accretion. You'll go, yeah, it was a lot of fun just saying it. So it allows me to use the word accretion, but I think it's a really good, it does say that, no matter what experience you've had, it doesn't go away. And further, that who you are is a pearl. I don't really care for pearls a whole lot, but like you can't do that with an amethyst. So the analogy doesn't work. Just to go, everybody is like a big chunk of amethyst because we're all like aluminosilicates with a zeolitic see, it doesn't work. The pearl, that's great though. So anyway, moving on. Thank you, Angela. Exceptional point. Yeah, CPTSD is something so sorry, Spaghetti says they always thought it was child PTSD. So complex PTSD implies that you have many traumas that interact. So to a psychologist, a complex is a group of characteristics, each of which can interact with each other. So when somebody says, do you have a complex? I remember when I was a kid, somebody would go, "What, do you have a complex?" It's like an inferiority complex. That's based on a whole lot of things, right? It might be your parents, it might be other people at school, a whole lot of things. So complex PTSD, it's a group of traumas that have ultimately come together to spur some sort of dysfunction. So there you go. Well, okay. Speaking of, so no, Angela says the water was very cold. Angela, you're supposed to warm it up. You don't pull it out of the refrigerator. I mean, you've turned the tap a little bit toward the warm. You run your wrist under it, right? Oh, it's like baby warm. That's perfect. And then you fill the balloons. There you go. Oh, come on. So Dudeco says, damn, of course a trans woman knows stuff about IT, right? Yeah, I know. We all are, but I'm going to tell. Oh gosh, this just okay. Charlotte says, as a cat owner, she'd be having a wet t-shirt day every day. Well, I'm not, I'm saying, I wore them when I went out. And for what it's worth, like now when I first started transitioning, so it was 2022, somewhere in 2022, I bought like breast forms, like real, like silicone. They're probably bouncier than my real boobs right now, but they're like silicone. Now I couldn't wear them. There's too much because it's mostly flat. I gotta find somebody I can donate those to as well. But anyway, yeah, this was when I was gonna go out dancing. I did always wonder though, right? Like if somebody goes, "Oh, you're so great. Can I pin this on me?" It's no. So I guess a fuck is out of the question, right? Something like that. I always had this thought. It never happened. And I pulled that line from Priscilla, Queen of the Desert, right? I don't know if you remember that one. Oh, this is great. Yes. Margie says she's having a great deal of Trumpian Schadenfreude these days. Schadenfreude, which is I need Anita to come in here, to laugh at other people's misfortune. Anita's going to have a better definition because they're actually German. So there you go. I'm okay. I got a thought on this. So Bo says people using parables as guidance is nonsense. I have a thought on that. I began this whole thing like I'm going to have to find my notes where the whole what I so I started off by saying I'm framing this discussion on my own experience because one of the best ways to make a point is to tell a story. Stories reach us. If I go to somebody, and by the way, Bo, I'm not saying you're wrong because we're going to get around to this, but if I go to somebody and I just go, "Hey man, gender is a complex of the physical, the cognitive, the behavioral, and the social, so lay off," they're going to be like, uh-huh, which makes sense because I'm telling them, giving them a big load of nothing that they go, I don't know what this is. If you can go in there and you go, well, when I was 4, my body felt weird. When I was a certain amount older, cognitively, I knew that I was different, but I couldn't figure out how, which affected my behavior because my social environment responded to me poorly. And so I was hit a lot. And I learned that I was a bad thing, just in general, capital B, capital T. And so that is how my gender ended up expressing itself. People will go, oh, well, that's a story. Like now I have to actually listen to you. It's hard to yell back at somebody who's telling you a story. Not always true. Now, when somebody uses a parable, because Jesus taught a lot in parables, because story is powerful. People understand stories about other people. And they use stories about other people to go, well, this is similar to me. I understand this because it's me. I can put myself in this story. But when somebody says, well, Jesus used this parable, therefore we're going to make a law against you. Yeah, well, wait a minute, hang on. What was the greater story here? I think so much of what Jesus did and believed and stood for has been completely taken out of the story. Right now it's become, well, God said that you're wrong. Therefore, I'm done. And by the way, here's the parable. Something about a mote in your eye. I'm not even sure what a mote is, but somebody hit me with a wooden beam, and therefore, what? You don't even make any sense. Although that does remind me of there was an old Jerry Seinfeld joke, and don't judge me for the Jerry Seinfeld bit here, but there was an old joke where Jerry Seinfeld was talking about soap on a rope. Who developed soap on a rope? Which I think is a pretty good point. Who did develop soap on a rope? There's somebody out there who was like, what would happen if I put a piece of rope in here on my soap, in my soap? What can I do with this? Swing it around. It was, Jerry Seinfeld said he doesn't generally have the need to hang himself when he's in the shower, which, I'm not going to claim the same, really. There have definitely been times I've been in the shower that I went, boy, how do I? Anyway, but he also said maybe it's just that it rhymes. Soap on a rope, but he doesn't need shaving cream on a wooden beam, so maybe not. There was my whole Seinfeld bit. I used that a lot in 1989 and 1990 to impress women in particular, but and oh my gosh, I've been watching this thinking, well, I didn't get any more comments. And now I'm scrolling down. I'm so sorry. Oh geez. I'm a fool. Yeah, Minnie says we always face a fork in the road. I think we do. And it doesn't make a difference who it is, you know? Minnie says, yeah, trying to solve problems, she misses out on good sleep. I think that's a good idea. Oh, I think this is lovely. Forrest says every act of awful is countered by wonder and beauty. Let me see. Every act of awful is countered by wonder and beauty. I'm going to leave it at that. Thank you, everyone, for caring enough to try. I agree with you. I think that's beautiful. I think that's beautiful. Anita happens to bring up there were more than 2 humans on Noah's Ark. You're not trying to say this guy's argument might have holes, are you? Accretion, yes. Accretion? Accretion creature. Oh, that's right. Margarita does mean pearl. That's a good point. Yes, it does. Ooh, black pearl earrings. Okay, black pearls are beautiful. I don't know how that comes out. I don't know why that happens. Is that something in the water that accretes? I don't know. But I like this. Here we go. Everyone's like a geode. We're crystallizing it to something beautiful. There's amethyst on the inside of those things, right? So Margie actually brings, so PTSD is the psychological damage from a short-term horrific event. Complex PTSD is from horrific events lasting months or more. And then Charlotte says, yeah, or multiple events. Yeah. Angela says she knows she's sane because at least 2 psychologists or 2 psychiatrists had to write letters, to prove it so she could get bottom surgery. Yeah, right. There you go. Oh, Sarsaparilla Jones. Oh, Sarsaparilla Jones. Thank you for sending me a gift. Thank you so much. I mean, and Spaghetti says, so they don't know about the psychiatrist because they're signed off on their top surgery and Spaghetti's still not all that sane. I was I'm curious if how much that really indicates, but here we go. Thank you. So Spaghetti makes this clear. So stories are powerful in order to explain things, but you do need to understand that they don't fit every situation and are usually very specific. And I don't disagree. I'm going to say like one story doesn't mean everything, and it's not going to land the same with everyone. So I think it's a good point. Okay. Here's something from Crash Test Dummies. Wow, I remember those guys. That says, but God said nothing, so someone asked him, I beg your pardon, I'm not quite clear about what you just spoke. Was that a parable or a very subtle joke? I like that. That guy had such a deep voice, but he was still rich. Like it wasn't deep. Yeah, it was like Peter Steele, kind of deep and rich, I cannot think of another lyric by Crash Test Dummies. What was that stupid? Now, what was that one song? I don't know. I saw it on MTV. All right, here we go. So I'm at 3:24 my time. I'm trying to think about whether it would be worthwhile to play a game. Do you guys still want to play a game? I can take 5 minutes. We come back about 3:30, play a game for whatever. Because my family left. My family went to a medieval like sort of like a Ren Fair kind of thing. And I did not go. I'm just gonna, if you want an indication of how I've been, by the way. Ooh, there was one more thing I wanted to bring up now that I remember it. So first of all, on Thursday, I think it was, I was walking through the kitchen. So we have these, Minnie says it correctly. It's Le Creuset. Le Creuset, something like that. They're big cast iron uh, cookware with like enamel on top of them. So it's like baked enamel, cast iron. They're heavy as anything. If you drop this on your foot, you're going to the emergency room. You could easily swing one of these and send somebody to an emergency room. So we have a lot of this cookware, and I happened to be in the kitchen. I was gonna go get a bowl because I was gonna eat some granola. Right? I'm like, oh, I'm maybe feeling a little better. I'll go eat some granola. And I go walking, and I don't know what did it, but the lid on the lid on the Le Creuset thing, whatever. Thank you, Margie. Yes, the it slipped because it was holding up right next to the dish drainer thing, right? Anyway, thing slides. It goes bang clang whatever, and I just start crying in the kitchen because I got so frightened. And I start walking, and I'm like, it's not getting better. I'm not feeling less embarrassed. I feel finally I'm racing to the bedroom, and I'm just sitting there crying for like half an hour. So that gives you an idea of how I was doing. Why the hell did I bring this up? Do I have a reason for that? I don't know. Anyway, that was how I've been doing. How I've been doing. Really walking an edge here. Charlotte says she can barely pick hers up these days. Yeah, boy, we have like this big, massive, like a 6 quart kind of thing, 6 liter kind of thing, and oh, it's got to be 10 pounds. I don't even know. Um, Here was the other thing I was going to say. I've had a couple of people. Had a couple of people ask me, and I'm not sure if you'd be one of them, but I had a couple of people ask me. Well, first of all, it's Pride Month, right? So happy Pride Month, everyone. But I've done this thing. So starting in 2023, I did this stupid joke that I called Pied for Pride, where I got like you know, um, like a pie in the face, right? And it was actually 3. Um, so the point was that I've been doing this now for 2023, 2024, 2025. Now it's become like a tradition, I suppose you would call it, getting pies in the face for Pride. And so somebody asked me, "Are you going to do this?" And I said, "I got to think about it." And then actually, Ildiko, my wife, asked me too, and I was like, "Here's what I'm thinking." So I was thinking it was, and I'm going to make a video the next 3 Mondays because here's what I'm thinking. I'll make a video tomorrow explaining the whole thing, that I want to do sort of like a subscriber drive. Like if I can grow on a platform 10%, I'm trying to do this, platform agnostic. If I can grow on a platform 10%, I'll go ahead and do it. Okay. It'll be funny because it's always funny. So you can tell all your friends, tell all your enemies, tell all my enemies, maybe. I'll have to use that line. I'll have to remember that line. So anyway, so if I can grow 10%, then we'll do that. It'll be funny, hopefully. People think it's funny. And they're not just subscribing so that they can unsubscribe like, July 1st, although I'm going to guess there's some of those. So anyway, if you were curious, yes, I'll do this, and I'll get it all figured out. But I'm going to do a video the next 3 Mondays, because I was thinking Tuesday, which is June 30th. June 30th is on a Tuesday when I do a live stream. Then we can fulfill the promise of Pied for Pride. And I was gonna talk about the thing tomorrow, and then probably the Monday after I'll talk about why I think this is actually a funny bit, or why it means something to me, which I've had somebody go, "You're an idiot. Like, why are you doing this? This doesn't sound like Pride." And I think those are people who aren't very good at it. There you go. So anyway, so I will talk about that afterwards. So yes, somebody wants to play. I'm going to do it. So let me take a 5-minute break or less, but I'm going to take a little bit of a break. Now I'll do 5 minutes, and then we can play a little bit, and I'll play until I reach like a normal, like, stopping point. Cause it certainly didn't work the last time. I was like 40 minutes over, and I'm like, when's this shit gonna end? I'm like, oh my gosh, get out of cutscenes. What's happening? So anyway, 5 minutes. I will be right back. I need some music. Maybe Margie's Margie's song she was doing for me, Pies Without a Face. So there you go. All right, be back.